I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock. Good evening, councillors, staff, the press, television, and online viewers in Blind River and surrounding area. We begin tonight's meeting with an acknowledgement that the land on which we are gathered is the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, specifically Mississauga. We would also like to acknowledge the North Channel Métis Council. We say miigwech to thank Indigenous people for taking care of this land from time immemorial. We are called to this sacred land, its plants, animals, stories, and its people with honor and respect. Prior to beginning this evening's agenda, I would ask that each councillor who is present via this video conferencing to answer the roll call when I call your name. Deputy Mayor Summers.
Present.
Councillor B. Dunbar.
Present.
Councillor J. Dunbar.
Here.
Councillor Wells.
Present.
Councillor Roy.
No, I'm unmuted.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm here. Thank you.
Councillor Posterero.
Present.
Thank you. Well, for those of you who haven't seen it yet, there are 40 panels of artwork displayed on the side of the Boatworks Storage Building, thanks to the beautiful artwork of Suzanne Kearns and friends. Special thanks goes to Laird Signs for recognizing the history of the businesses in our community. We would also like to thank Garnet Young of Young's Auto Body for spraying the artwork, which ensures that it will be able to withstand the elements of Mother Nature, such as today, and what she provides. This is a private initiative outside of the realm of the town of Blind River's budget, and it's just another example of how we can all work together to make our community beautiful. It's the beginning of the beautification project as plans are underway to landscape the area in front of the paintings, and hopefully with the assistance of the horticultural group and our amazing town employees, it will be yet another Blind River tourism attraction. Now, without further ado, turning to tonight's agenda, I have a motion from Councillor Deputy Mayor Summers, and Councillor B. Dunbar. Be it resolved that Council approve the agenda and the closed meeting agenda as presented. All in favor of this motion? And that's carried. Thank you. And there is one declaration of conflict of interest, and that would be myself on agenda item 9.3. I've asked Deputy Mayor Summers to take over the meeting for that agenda item, and I will be leaving the room. Are there any other conflicts of interest? Councillor Posterero?
I'll need to make a conflict of interest on item number 11.1.3 and 16.3. Just because Algoma District School Board is my other employer and there may be perceived conflict of interest.
Okay, thank you for that. And I have a motion from Councillor Posterero, seconded by Councillor Roy. Be it resolved that Council, we've got these in wrong order. Sorry, guys. I'm definitely not on my game here. Here we go. Be it resolved that Council adopt the minutes of the regular meeting of August 9th and the special council meeting of August 16th as presented. All in favor of this motion? And that is carried. Thank you. And is there any business coming out of the minutes from those meetings? Seeing none. We have no public presentations tonight, so moving on to the introduction and consideration of the administrative reports, 9.1. We have a report from our CAO clerk, re the ISIP green funding. Has Councillor any questions for Ms. Scott? And seeing none, I know Ms. Scott is going to be very busy in the next 2 days putting together funding for that. And from the deputy clerk, we have a motion from J. Posterero and H.P. Roy. Be it resolved that Council authorize the renewal of group benefits with Equitable Life for the 2021-2022 term at an increase of 3.32% annually. Discussion? All in favor of this motion? And that's carried. Thank you. And from RCAO, this is 9.3. I will be leaving the room now, and I ask Deputy Mayor Summers to take over.
So for 9.3, we are looking at the Indiana tennis courts, and I'll read the resolution first. Put my glasses on first. Whereas moved by Betty Ann Dunbar, Councillor Dunbar, and seconded by Councillor Pastorero. Whereas Trillium has just released the Community Building Fund capital stream to strengthen communities by supporting the repair, renovation, or retrofitting of existing sports and recreation facilities. And whereas a number of recreation facilities have been identified as needing upgrades. And whereas Council is committed to ensuring that any upgrades meet accessibility standards. Therefore, be it resolved that Council authorize the CAO clerk to make application to repair the Indiana tennis street courts in the amount of $350,000, to relocate the basketball court currently located behind the community center to the Birch Street location, and to further maximize the funding stream and incorporate the Birch Street baseball field from behind the community center to the Birch Street location across from the Public Works complex at an estimated cost of $200,000, resulting in a total project ask of $580,000, and that existing dollars allocated within the 2021 capital project list be used as both contingency and the municipal contribution plus insurance monies, resulting in zero additional funding required from the taxpayers. Discussion. Councillor Pastorero, followed by Councillor Jim Dunbar.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I was just wondering why under this Trillium grant, we weren't considering placing also the Shervon playground in there. The ask for the tennis court seems to be quite exuberant. So I'm just wondering, was there any way that we could also fit the funding for the playground into this Trillium grant so that there wouldn't be any burden placed on the taxpayer for that as well?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Summers, to Councillor Pastorero. So when the funding came available, staff went on the resolution that was passed September 21, 2020, resolution number 2253, as the tennis club had forwarded a letter to council requesting to be prioritized for Trillium funding, and their surface asphalt top of that court is in poor condition, was in poor condition prior to the fencing being blown over by the wind. So the quotes that we obtained, as well as discussions with the city of North Bay and the city of Sudbury, as they are both undertaking tennis court projects this year, they too were in agreement. We are not going to go with the same surface as what is there now. We would be going with an asphalt surface, which is slightly cheaper, but it's still in the range of $250,000 to do that. As noted in the report, the fencing would be covered under insurance. However, there would be the line painting, making the area accessible, as well as new wind screening that would need to be allocated for that. So the rationale of bringing this forward was based on our previous resolution of council to prioritize that area for funding. If we were to look at removing the baseball, which has also been a huge request of residents in the community, wanting to have an area to play in that isn't putting balls on the road or across onto homes. That's why that was it would be a community hub for that area. And that's how we would be phasing the grant in.
Go ahead, Councillor Pastorero.
Thank you very much. Just a quick follow-up. So yes, understanding the report, I'm just wondering if, because we projected those numbers quite high, like because of COVID pricing. So if there was any money to be saved where we were under budget, could that money then flow to the Shervon Park so that the burden wouldn't be placed on the taxpayer?
And Councillor Dunbar?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Summers. I want to make it clear here that I've got no objections to the applications for the repair to the Indiana tennis courts. As you can see, I was the mover back in 2020 of the partnership with the for the Trillium grant, and then in that resolution, I believe the tennis club was to contribute $15,000, and the town we were going to budget in $10,000 for any shortfalls. Okay, so I have some objections, and I guess as far as I'm willing to go in support of this recommendation before us would be just as far as the tennis courts. These two other projects that have come up here for the basketball court and ball field should have come before the Community Services Committee for discussion. And as you know, Deputy Mayor Summers, Community Services is responsible for all matters that involve recreational and cultural activities. And I believe these two other project items fall within those parameters for discussion at a community service meeting. The way I see it, Deputy Mayor Summers, the Community Service Committee should be bringing forward the recommendation projects to max out the Trillium grants of the $500,000. So therefore, Deputy Mayor Summers, I'd like to move to amend this recommendation to read as it is, okay, as it is, up to, therefore, be it resolved that council authorize the CAO clerk to make applications to repair the Indiana tennis courts in the amount of $350,000. And that further projects to max out the Trillium grant will be discussed and brought forward to council by the Community Services Committee. I guess before I ask for a seconder on this amendment, I'd like to put it out there for some discussion, or maybe Ms. Scott might be able to have a question or an answer for me on this.
Ms. Scott?
Thank you, Councillor Dunbar. Through you, Deputy Mayor Summers, I'd just like to remind council that you have already budgeted to repair the Birch Street baseball park. You have $15,000 sitting in a capital with a 5-year plan of adding additional money. However, it was noted at the budget committee meeting that should we find a grant to maximize, to offset these costs, we would do so, which is why being in that hub area and under the plan and design that was developed when the outdoor rink was created for the skateboard park, all of those initiatives were under that plan. Now that was a previous plan to council, but the baseball park is there and in need of bringing forward. So we were moving forward on the light of and the direction of council through the budget as the Birch Street Baseball Park was identified in the budget process by all of the budget committee, which is all of council, to move forward on that project. We just hadn't done anything this year based on the fact that we had to allocate some additional funds over to the Boom Camp boat launch, which we had not budgeted for, and we were holding that back as a possibility that we may need to use the funds from the Birch Street Baseball Park, but we were successful in not having to do that. So that was the rationale. It wasn't that we were trying to trump council's wishes. We were following council's wishes by following the budget that was already allocated.
Just a follow-up, Mayor, Deputy Mayor Summers. Yeah, thank you. I mean, the rationale, I appreciate it, Ms. Scott. But I still think going on past $200,000 worth of grant money here should be up for discussion and not voted on here right now, and should be brought to a community services committee, just as anything on infrastructure may be with the infrastructure services or any of the other committees. Otherwise, why don't we just defunct the community services committee if we're not going to have any input in this here?
Through you,
Ms. Scott.
Deputy Mayor Summers, we can certainly do that, but the grant closes on September 29th.
And I also was ready for this, where I said, while we were having our community service meeting, if there was any project that needed immediate discussion, that we would come back. And I'm pretty sure Councillor Summers and Councillor Fosteros remembers me putting that forward on this matter. But I'm just saying, I would like to discuss the money, and well, if we have to have a special community service meeting, so be it. Prior to your September 29th due date.
Ms. Scott, I just had one question. I'm a little bit confused about this baseball park. Is that the baseball park like behind the arena? I thought that was on Board of Education property.
No.
I could have sworn that when we talked about that baseball field, because there was an ask when we had received funds from the Blue Jays fund. You know, there was an ask for that, but we couldn't anyways because the project went in for that particular baseball field. But I thought we were told at that time that that baseball field was Board of Education. No? Okay.
It's a municipal baseball field. The baseball, the fencing was done by the municipality as part of it. It was part of a whole hub that was designed along the same time as the skateboard park and the outdoor rink. It was designed that that area would be a community hub with the arena, the outdoor rink, the skateboard park.
Okay. Okay.
So this would be closing that gap of that plan.
Okay.
Perhaps
mine.
Ms. Bittner could elaborate on that. She did the grant for the Blue Jay funds.
That part I understood. I think I just, for some reason, there was something in the back of my head that I thought we were told that that baseball park was part of the school. That's why, that's fine.
There was a possibility of funding options with the school, I think is what you're thinking.
Oh, okay, maybe that's my mistake then. Okay, I see Councillor Betty Ann Dunbar has her hand up.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just wonder, with the amount of money that we put into the baseball park by the high school, do our demographics even say that we have the need for 2 baseball parks? Like, is that, like, I don't remember, the last I heard we were turning the baseball park into a dog park. So, you know, I'm not sure. I must have missed that meeting.
Through you, Councillor, or to you, Councillor Dunbar, through you, Deputy Mayor Summers. The baseball park, and I'm going to mix this up because I'm not good at baseball, but there's baseball, softball, there's 2 different leagues.
Mhm.
And we have a demographic where we have been approached by a group of people that would like to play but cannot. They have to go out to Mississauga First Nation to play that type of baseball. And I do apologize to those baseball players out there that I'm mixing this up. But that was one of the requests that we would have when we had community days in the past, we were unable to continue to host those tournaments at our park. Everything had to be bussed out. Everyone had to be bussed out to Mississauga First Nation. That's not saying that we couldn't still have a tournament with both parts. We do draw a big crowd for those. But no, I don't believe that I can give you an accurate number or a demographic for the amount of users. I just know that we have had those requests come forward to the table.
Go ahead.
I'm fine with that. I just did not understand that there's two types of baseball parks.
Mhm,
Like,
mhm,
I
mhm.
thought a baseball park was a baseball park.
Ms. Bittner, did you have something to add to that?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Summers. My attempt to vocalize is as our students or our younger players in minor baseball age out of the town park, which is still a beautiful environment for them to develop their skills and camaraderie, as they graduate into a more advanced type of ball where they're going to be hitting farther, that field is appropriately designed. And given that it's walking distance from three school locations in the near future,
Mhm.
it's a great alternative for multiple boards to take advantage to, and the town to create some partnerships. The other piece being is I like to call the group our active seniors, because you're not old yet. You still want to be doing things and activities. So that group of active seniors would like an environment where they can play fastball. Similarly to the ball tournaments that are happening in Thessalon, it's a really simple mechanism for Blind River to activate here. There is a desire for it. It is sold out in Thessalon. It's very low cost for us, and it would be a huge driver or an additional driver to complement golf and other summer sports in Blind River, and relatively low as far as the staffing goes, because we make sure the grass is cut, it's ready to go, and then we're essentially hands off.
Thank you.
So I hope that helps.
Councillor Roy? And followed by Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Summers. I guess I've got a couple questions. First of all, I guess Jim touched on it. Are we still getting $15,000 from the tennis club?
I do believe we are.
I believe it would be $14,000.
Mhm.
14, okay. Now, why do we need a private club? Because this gives me a really sour taste in my mouth. The people of Blind River aren't going to be happy with us, even though it's Trillium funded for the most part. They're not gonna be happy that we're putting that kind of money into that. So if we're going to do this, we damn well better put in the $55,000 for the next one for the kids' playground, because we're gonna get a lot of flack on this, because it's a private club. I mean, we haven't put any money into the town park one for quite some time. I believe it was, maybe when I was first on council. So that's quite some time ago. And now and I know we didn't put no $350,000 into it. So, it leaves a really bitter taste in my mouth to say, yeah, let's go ahead and do this and I'm not even sure how many individuals use it. There could be 20, there could be 50, but I don't think that there'd be more than that. I don't know. I'm like Miss Scott with the baseball. I don't know that part of it. So there could be 100 people. I don't think there would be, but just the same, it's private club. It is on town property, but it's a private club. And here we are, putting out or taking $350,000 that could be put towards other things, parks all over our town. So I don't know. I really I don't mind the second part of this. First part of it is pretty hard to swallow, and I think we're going to get some feedback from the public on this one. So that's just my thoughts on this. Thank you.
I can probably give you a little bit of information. I'm not really sure. It's just a little bit of background. So the park that tennis court was originally built by the municipality, I guess, through funding. The reason why the membership started was because they thought they could put money away for in cases like this where it would need to have some work done to it, whatever needed to be done. I guess they've kind of funded the new screenings or that sort of thing, whatever they've needed out of it. Part of that money goes towards insurance. People that play on that court are actually insured through the tennis club, I believe is how that works. Where if you're playing over at the town park, then if there was an injury, then it would have to go through the town insurance, is what my understanding is. I tend to agree with you that I think, after spending that kind of money on that, maybe we might want to revisit how that part goes. That's just something maybe we can look at in the future, but
Use it.
because I can kind of see where that could be an issue as well. Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Summers. Councillor Roy sort of anticipated what I was going to say too, that I understand that we are supporting the tennis club to apply for Trillium funding. That was the wording of our previous motion. And we have obtained Trillium funding to resurface a tennis club used by a private club. Now, because we've assisted the club in acquiring the Trillium funding, and it will be no direct cost to the Blind River taxpayers, I'm okay with continuing forward with redoing that surface. And I also appreciate that we did talk about the other baseball field as part of our deliberations. However, I do not recall discussing the basketball court, that we were going to be moving that. And I don't mean to be operational here, but I just like to observe that we do have a public tennis court at the town park beside the new baseball field that we just created, and that surface is in bad condition too. So I'm just thinking that perhaps we could find funding if we're going to treat the private club surface with asphalt. Perhaps we could do 2 courts for less money. And we also, as Councillor Roy pointed out, we also have the Chevron Park issue as well. We may need $40,000 to $50,000 to upgrade that area as well. So I'm just wondering if we're allocating all of this money the best possible way, but I'm not refuting the money that will be going to the tennis club, because we've already discussed that, supporting the tennis club and supporting our application for the funding. But I'm just wondering about perhaps the basketball court, which I don't have any recollection of.
Councillor Pastorero, your hand is up.
Sorry, my mute won't come off. Just a clarification question. So this adds a whole new level. I apologize for being green, but the Indiana tennis courts is private, as in anyone from the community cannot play on that structure. So you must be a member in order to use it. Is that correct?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Summers, that is correct. Yes, that is correct. It is a private club. There's a private membership. There's 40 members in the tennis club.
Okay. And I
And
believe,
there is a pickleball club,
Mhm,
which has a larger membership.
and I believe it's $35 a year, and $10 of that goes towards insurance.
Okay, that changes things immensely. Like, if it's not a public court, then yes, we should be doing what we said we would do with the surface. But if only members, then they need to sustain the court as well. If it's not a public facility, then they need to step up to the plate and pay their share then, if it's private. And if the public can't use it, that adds a whole new level to this.
Well, that's where the $14,000 is coming from. That was from membership fees that have been collected. I mean, anybody can join it, I guess. Like, if more people wanted to join it, it's there. But that was when we had agreed to back them for the Trillium funding. That was the rationale. Councillor Jim Dunbar.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Most of the councillors have touched upon the same sentiments that I'm dealing with here right now. There was suggestions of utilizing the money. Okay. First of all, I know we're looking at a sum of $500,000 here. Okay, that's a max out. So if we can all agree on that, that's fine. We're setting aside $350,000 as the motion. It had no amounts of money, but we were going to go after the Trillium. I moved that back in September 2020. Again, I'm okay with doing what we said we're going to set out to do for the tennis court over on Indiana. But what you other counselors have touched upon is there's $200,000 or $150,000 left over here. And we're utilizing it on a baseball park, and we're utilizing it on now this has been a recommendation to us, and we're utilizing it on moving a basketball court, where Councillor Pastorero said maybe there's possibility of looking at some money for the Chevron Park. Councillor Roy mentions that, you know, a little tender loving care could be used over at our other Woodward Town Hall tennis court. And my point is, this would have and could have and should have all come from the community services to you, to be presented to you, and not here we are stuck right now with a recommendation that I'm still going to put that, I move for the amendment. And we're supposed to vote on this right now, like the way it reads? I don't think so. And if my amendment doesn't pass, I'm going to call for a recorded vote on this.
Councillor Pastorero.
Further to that, I would actually ask for it to be deferred. I know that many people hate that word, but we do need to iron this out. That's a huge chunk of money that could be spread out to many organizations. And I know that the goal was to fulfill the dream of that hub concept, but I think we need to iron it out. And I think as it stands right now, this motion would be defeated tonight. So I think we need time to iron this out and talk about where we want to spend that. And I understand that there's a tight crunch for the deadline being the 29th. But I think if we needed to, like was mentioned before, we could have a special council meeting where we could do that if need be.
Councillor Wells. I'm sorry.
I need Councillor Wells to let me know he has his in-depth knowledge, or maybe the CAO clerk. I believe I put forward a motion to amend. Am I correct in thinking that I'll need a seconder and it should be defeated or passed? Is this not correct? And my amendment was to leave the $350,000 in, Councillor Pastorero, for the tennis court. But that was it. But so I think we should move, like, go ahead here and either eliminate my amendment or pass it. And again, Council, go ahead.
Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Summers. With respect to Councillor Pastorero, we'd already passed a resolution indicating that we would apply or look for Trillium money for the tennis court. So unless we wanted to rescind that previous resolution and defeat this one, you see what I mean? Like we're kind of mixing things up here. But I think I agree with Councillor Dunbar. If I could hear his amendment again, once I've heard it, I'd be willing to second it so we could put it to a vote.
Go ahead.
Scott.
So I just want to be clear, the amendment is that we only apply for the tennis club.
The $350,000, that's where we would stop. If you look at the recommendation you have written out, we would stop there, and that further projects to max out the Trillium grant would be discussed and brought forward to council by Community Service Committee.
Then you should probably just defer the whole motion, because if we're going to write a grant, we can't proceed with writing a grant partially. We need full direction of how we're writing the grant. Are we writing it for the 500,000 or not? How is that going to look? What is the end goal for council, and how does those parameters fit within the grant? So when we looked at the grant and what the parameters are, we'd have to be very creative if we're going to start throwing in playgrounds at one end of town, tennis clubs at one end of town, and then another tennis club at the other end of town. Do you see what I'm saying? So we would need to ensure that we're meeting the parameters of the grant. So it's saying recreation facilities. So that was the rationale of the hub idea as to where it is. I'm not saying it's impossible, but we would have to do some creative work with coming forward, but you're better to defer the whole grant, because there's nothing that staff can do at this time to work on the grant without further direction and revisiting our strat plans and revisiting all of the plans that we have in place.
Okay.
What is our date again, Mayor, Deputy Mayor Summers, our end date or our
September
final date
29th.
for this grant?
September 29th. But I'm sure we could probably have a community services meeting called quickly. We didn't, the last two were canceled due to lack of stuff for it. So,
Availability, yeah.
yeah, well, not availability. I think there was just nothing to discuss. So, I mean, we could probably get a meeting together pretty quickly so that we could sort it out, and then I guess
It would, we wouldn't be able to have a meeting until the week of the 13th. We are already committed with writing the grants that we have in the queue right now that we're under really tight deadlines. And I think we can all agree that the water is a more pressing
Yeah.
grant, and other meetings that are already previously booked. So we would be looking at the week of the 13th. That gives us a turnaround of,
almost 2 weeks. If we had
Well,
it right
we
away.
only have 2 days for the water.
that has been being worked on, Councillor Dunbar. As you know, that again was passed during the budget committee to move forward with the water and identified as a project. So when that grant came available, we already have our SEMA working on that, engineering firms. So they are working with me for those studies.
Well, I'm available for the 13th for the community service meeting, and I believe the 2 other councillors on that committee are here, and I don't know if they can speak. I'll let them speak for themselves.
We will have to look at our schedule though, staffing. I can see right now that I have elections training going on that day. So we'll have to look at our schedules, and I can send out something to the committee tomorrow morning.
Okay. So, Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Summers. So if the Community Services Committee does meet sometime in the near future, do we then have to have a special council meeting to deal with their recommendation? What's the deadline for this application?
The application deadline is the 29th. This would have to come back. The committee has no authority to bind council. So it comes back to council on the 20th. And then staff could not start writing the report until the 21st.
Unless we called a special council meeting, right? But then there's another meeting that you have to schedule in. Okay. However, if it's just for one item, it might, okay. Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Summers. Sorry to drag this out. But I'm looking at the documentation I have here. It just refers to existing sports and recreation facilities. It doesn't refer to a recreation or sports hub specifically, does it not?
That's what I'm seeing here.
So we could use the money for facilities throughout the community.
I would defer that to Ms. Bittner.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Summers, Councillor Wells, great comment. The idea of a facility and the concept would be that zone, because we had the previous recreation draft for that area. So the word facility is all encompassing of the outdoor rec area that we'd be creating. We are not doing the plural of a facility. So for instance, Forest Glen Park, Rousseau Park, tennis court at Town Park, that starts to get a little bit convoluted unless we were going in with an overarching facility for the entire town of Blind River, where I would be very hesitant to pinpoint one over another. For instance, Shervon Playground, why that one over the rest? So why are we not considering all of our playgrounds for updates instead of just one facility? So keep those pieces in mind before the committee meeting. So if we're not creating a outdoor rec facility, all encompassing in one zone, how are we making sure it is equitable throughout the entire municipality? So just keep that in mind for the committee, and then that can be open for discussion.
Okay. Councillor Roy.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Summers. How is it not equitable? I'm sorry, I'm going to jump in here. It's not equitable, pardon me, because it's a private club. That isn't equitable for everybody. Some people can't afford to be paying the extra money. We all know that. So that part is not part of the hub as far as I'm concerned. I think everything else everything's free there, right? You got the skate park, you've got the basketball, you've got the baseball park. that's all well and good. But as far as having a private club there and us funding it, and even though, yeah, we're getting a Trillium grant, when we get that much money from Trillium, say 350 there plus the rest of the money, so it's 580, I believe, total, it reduces the amount we can borrow on anything else, right? Our ask is here. This is it. Our ask can't get any bigger. We can't say, okay, well, we want more in the same year, right? So our ask is 580. We're spending it on this. And like I said, it's a private club. That's hurting, because when they said 15 grand in the first place back in 2020 in September, that's great. Town had to kick in 10, get a little bit of money from Trillium. Yeah, get 350,000 for them for Trillium for that one little, thing that it just doesn't. It just blows my mind. So
Yes, but there.
I don't.
So Deputy Mayor Summers, just to clarify, Councillor Roy, the equitable component is outside of the previously given resolution where council committed to the capital component. So staff are making sure that they're overseeing the item that council had voted on in 2020. So then we're not in breach of anything that you've already committed to. And then the remaining funds creating an equitable outdoor experience for our residents. So unless council wants to make a decision to go back on its offer to the tennis club that was already put in place in 2020, then of course that whole 500,000 is opened up. That's how we're trying to explain it right now, is we're taking care of the one piece of homework that we've had outstanding, and then what can we do with the rest of those funds for the rest of the community?
Councillor Prosterero, did I see your hand up?
Yes, sorry, I had put on the table that it be deferred, so I was wondering if we could vote on that.
So what is everybody oh, Councillor Wells?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Summers. I was thinking on the line of Councillor Pastor about a motion to defer this, refer it back to the Community Services Committee. But Councillor Dunbar, I think, had already made a motion with regard to the motion in front of us.
If I may, Councillor Wells, I would rescind that because I don't have a seconder yet. Now I'll just pull that off.
Then I would be willing to move or second that we defer this motion and it's referred back to the Community Service Committee for further discussion. And then it come back to council prior to the deadline for the grant application.
So if you wanted to second that, then we could vote.
So we have a mover and a seconder then. All in favor of deferring this motion? That's carried. If we could let Mayor Hagman know that she can come back in.
And turning to 9.4 on the Shervon Playground, I have a motion from Councillor Jay Dunbar, seconded by Councillor Wells. Whereas council has received the Shervon Park Playground Equipment Report dated September 1st, 2021, the result of further reviews of requirements to bring Shervon Park and equipment up to current accessibility standards. And whereas approximately $55,000 is required to remediate the Shervon Park to accessible standards. Discussion. Councillor Posterero.
I'm just wondering if the motion is missing its ask. I'm just wondering what the direction is that it is requesting of us. Are we voting to approve spending the $55,000? I'm just wondering if the last sentence is maybe missing a further whereas or therefore. I'm just wondering if it's complete.
Ms. Scott, I'll let you respond to that question.
Yes, that's through you, Mayor Hagman. The previous motion that I have on Shervon Park was that we bring a detailed report to council and then it be sent to the budget committee for deliberation. So this is your report that will be going to the budget committee that was how the notice of motion was written.
Thank you for that. And Deputy Mayor Summers?
When I look in the recommendation in the other part, it did have, and that resolution 2299 is hereby amended. I believe, so is that the part maybe that might be missing? Because it's kind of saying exactly the same stuff. I'm not sure.
Through you, Mayor Hedman, I would ask that Pam weigh in on this extent. I don't have the motion in front of me that is written.
Because in the last page where the recommendation is, it's worded a little bit differently, but it's kind of saying the same stuff, I think. Pam there?
Pam's just bringing it up now.
Yeah, it appears it's missing. Therefore, be it resolved that council authorize 55,000 to be allocated in the 2022 budget for the Shervon Park remediation project, and that resolution 2299 is hereby amended.
Mhm.
I think that's the part that was missing.
I believe so. Mhm.
The intent is for the budget committee to review the full project
Mhm.
along with other budget requests at the time prior to providing pre-budget approval at this meeting. That was the direction I was under.
Madam Mayor?
Yeah, sorry, I was just waiting for Pam to respond to the
Okay.
first question.
I would also like to have the notice of motion read that I put up forward on this, because I believe we were going to vote on this. And I don't recall the budget committee being involved in my notice of motion that we passed.
So
I can read the motion if you like, Councillor Mayor, or Mayor Hagman.
yes, go ahead, Ms. Scott.
Whereas the Shervon Playground has been designated for decommissioning, and whereas there have been valid documented complaints from residents expressing their dissatisfaction over the decommissioning, and whereas there has been little information provided for the actual expense to the taxpayers to continue this playground service. Therefore, be it resolved that council direct the CAO clerk to obtain a written staff report outlining the estimated expenses to bring the old playground equipment and site up to the current safety requirements.
Yeah.
And that council receive the Shervon report prior to the 2022 budget deliberations, and that council, after receiving the report, reconsider 2299 to decommission Shervon Playground.
So we've received the report, so are we not going to vote, vote on this? To either deny the investment into Shervon or not? That's what I thought my motion was leading to.
Councillor Wells, I believe that Ms. Walsh has an answer for you now. If you look at your ESCRA, the resolution has been updated, and that it does include, and that resolution 20-299 is hereby amended, sorry.
So I guess, Madam Mayor, my question is, are we going forward and putting the $55,000 or allocating $55,000 for the Shervon Park for 2022 budget, or that will be for discussion?
I believe it, as the motion says, it's authorized to be allocated in the 2022 budget for the Shervon Park remediation project.
Perfect, thank you.
I had a question for Mr. Raymond. I was questioning whether the fencing was required at Shervon Park. I know that there isn't fencing for the playground at the town park, and so I was just questioning why we would need it at Shervon.
Mhm.
Through you, Madam Mayor. The reasoning for the fencing for there is because the playground is so close to the water, whereas the one at the town park, there's a ball field in between the water and the playground.
Okay,
And the water level is so high, you can walk right into the water from the grass that most times.
okay,
Whereas at the town park, there is a small retaining wall there.
right, okay. Thank you for that. Counselor Jay Dunbar?
I'd just like to ask Ken, another question on that is that this is a recommendation. This is not a requirement, correct?
It's, I believe it's more of a requirement through the town for, or through our health and safety. I'd have to look into it a little further on that.
Okay.
I can check into it a little more on through the playground, but it's more for the health and safety and for the safety of the children that are there, that are playing.
Okay, thanks, Ken.
Counselor Pastorero?
Thank you. When I was speaking to residents over there in the community, that's one of the things that I brought up, is that if we want to save this park, that was one of the things that we would potentially have to do, is fence it in for liability purposes. So it's a give take situation. If you want to save the park, then you need to ensure that it is safe. Because I'm sure the councillors would not want the liability. And I understand that there is the town park, which has water, and this park has water, but like Ken was saying, it's a lot closer to the park. So as I was talking with residents over there about the park, I let them know that's one of the things that if we want to save the park, then potentially that's one of the things we have to do to save it, is put a fence, and there's a cost to that. So if we want to save it and we want to be responsible and take care of the children, then we need to make sure it's a safe place for them. So we need to do, if we're committed to saving the park, we need to do what needs to be done to ensure they are safe in every way.
Deputy Mayor Summers, followed by Counselor Wells.
My question is, when Mr. Weisner gave us, talked to us about what they would like to do, there was a talk of fundraising and helping to put monies towards the park, and I'm just wondering how does that work in as far as that goes? Because I mean, we always say how we want the community to step up and help provide things for the town as well, that not always should the town always have to foot the bill for everything that is going on around town. And when they're offering to do something, how do we work that out between us and them? I'm just asking the question. I'm just curious.
And I'll put that question to Ms. Scott.
For you, Madam Mayor, there's a whole amount of variables there. I mean, I'm not sure he put it out there, but I'm not sure what his in-depth background for that was, or what his rationale for that was. We'd have to hear those terms of those of what he's proposing. He wasn't very detailed that evening for me to be able to provide you with an adequate answer.
Thank you. Counselor Wells?
Thank you, Mayor Hagman. Yeah, with regard to Mr. Weisner, I know that we are always looking for community champions to come forward to assist us. And with regard to liability, it's my understanding that even if we have a fence, the fence would not absolve us of problems with regard to liability if something would happen there anyway. But I'd like to come back to the motion we have in front of us. Are we voting right now to spend $55,000 on the Shervon Park? Or are we going to follow with that, I think, the intent of Councillor Dunbar's motion, previous motion, and refer this to the Finance Committee?
I don't think, sorry.
Go ahead, Counselor Jay Dunbar.
I don't think I had that in my motion, Councillor Wells, to put it to the Finance Committee.
No, the motion is referring to 55,000 being allocated in the 2022 budget for the Shervon Park remediation project.
Yeah, so I think what you're asking, maybe we were supposed to vote on this here. I thought we're voting on what this recommendation is here in front of us, or resolution.
And Councillor Posterero?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just wondering that if we pass this tonight and we dedicate ourselves to saving the Shervon Park in the amount of $55,000, if we do find efficiencies under that Trillium grant, could we not later then move that money towards the Shervon and not have it be spent under the budget item so that it could be paid for under the Trillium grant? Is that a possibility?
I don't know what you agreed to under the Trillium grant, but I can say, having worn the Trillium grant review hat, that whatever you put in your grant is what will be audited, and that you have to state within the parameters of your grant. Deputy Mayor Summers?
So then in that situation, if there were monies left over, would they be returned to Trillium then? Is that how it works usually?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm a little bit confused too, because I'm looking at this one that moved by Jim Dunbar, which was seconded by me. And the last part of that does say that council received the Shervon report prior to the 2022 budget deliberations, which we did, and that council, after receiving the report, reconsider the resolution 2299 to decommission the Shervon playground. So I'm taking it from that we would be sending it to the budget committee for consideration, and that we would say that we will not decommission it at this point and see what happens with the budget. Is that that's what my understanding was?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that is my understanding, and that would be my recommendation to council. If you commit to $55,000 at this point for one item without reviewing the entire budget, I am not sure that that is a wise decision at this time. We are only in September. There's still a few months to go, and council may have other priorities that come up. This, the hold will be on, that the park will still be a park. We have removed the items that were of concern for Mr. Raymond, but no further decommissioning will be done at this time. And then the full report can go to the budget committee to review with the full budget that council will be reviewing. That would be my recommendation.
And I would feel more comfortable with that.
Councillor Wells, Councillor Posterero, Councillor J. Dunbar.
Thank you, Mayor Hagman. So in the motion that we have before us, could we change the language? Therefore, be it resolved that council recommends to the finance committee that $55,000 be allocated to the Shervon Park? Would that solve the problem? But we also have, and then we would be rescinding, if we pass this motion as is with that little change, then we will be rescinding the previous motion to decommission the park, right?
That would be correct.
Councillor Posterero.
Yeah, very similar to Councillor Wells. So it was just the amendment. So the part that follows, therefore be it resolved that council, we would put rescind the previous motion, and like CEO Scott said, that we should then refer it to the budget committee for further review of how much we're going to spend. So we just need to reword that last bit.
And Councillor J. Dunbar.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I too agree with this here new recommendation, the amendments, and I realize the 55,000 here will go to the budget committee, and it says it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be 55,000. who knows, maybe we may have to see it where it's a spot where it may be only 10,000, a couple of swings or whatnot for this year. That 55,000 is a total, I believe, we were given for a complete upgrade. So I'm happy with the new amendment here.
And I'm looking towards Ms. Walsh. She is making those changes and it's been updated. So if you refresh your screen, you should have the updated recommendation.
Yeah.
And I'll read the updated motion again. Just waiting for mine to. Let's just keep saying refreshing still. Thank you. So the new wording is saying, whereas council has received the Sherburne Park Playground Equipment Report dated September 1st, 2021, the result of a further review of the requirements to bring Sherburne Park and equipment up to current accessibility standards, and whereas approximately $55,000 is required to remediate the Sherburne Park to accessible standards, therefore be it resolved that council recommend to the Budget Committee that $55,000 be reviewed during the 2022 budget for the Sherburne Park remediation project, and that resolution 20-299 is hereby rescinded. Councillor Wells?
Thank you, Mayor Hagman. Since this playground has been a community issue of late, I'd like to call for a recorded vote on this motion.
Okay, and I will ask Ms. Scott to call the names.
Deputy Mayor Summers,
In favor.
Councillor Betty Ann Dunbar,
In favor.
Councillor Jim Dunbar,
In favor.
Councillor Stephen Wells,
In favor?
Councillor HP Roy,
In favor.
Councillor Jennifer Posterero,
In favor.
and Mayor Hagman.
In favor.
And that is carried.
Thanks, everyone. And moving on to 9.5 from our CA clerk. The variance 21-009 at 1894 Highway 555 application for a minor variance. This motion has been moved by Deputy Mayor Summers, seconded by Councillor Roy. Be it resolved that council grant relief from section 11.2 of the Comprehensive Land Use Zoning Bylaw 16-49 for the property located at 1894 Highway 557 to increase the maximum gross floor area for an accessory structure to 162 meters squared, where 100 meters squared is permitted. Discussion. All in favor of this motion? And that's carried. Thank you. And from our CAO clerk, the Handy Transit RFP award. This was moved by Councillor Wells, seconded by Councillor B. Dunbar. Whereas council has received the Handy Transit RFP award report dated September 2nd, 2021. And whereas council wishes to enter into an agreement with AJ Bus Lines to provide handy transit services for the town of Blind River, therefore be it resolved that council authorizes CAO clerk to prepare a formal agreement with AJ Bus Lines Limited in the operation of the handy transit bus, and that the required $10,750.80 be found within the current 2021 budget. Discussion? Councillor Jay Dunbar, followed by Councillor Pastorero.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess my question would go to Ms. Dent is, are we able to find the 10,750? Has it been looked at yet? And will we be able to do it?
Sorry, through you, Madam Mayor. One possibility is we could, if we need to, access some of the additional funding from our provincial gas tax. I did have that conversation with the people at the provincial gas tax office. So that would be one possibility. At this point in the year, it's too early to say if we'll be able to find the full 10,000, but generally we do have a surplus at the end of the year in excess of $10,000. So I don't imagine it will be a huge issue. But we will certainly keep an eye on things and make sure that we're where we need to be for the end of the year.
Okay, thanks, Sue.
And Councillor Wells? No questions? Are there any other comments on this motion? I'm just turning on the mic while you're, sorry. With no other motions, all in, or no other questions, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Moving on to 9.7. Resuming in-person council meetings, I have a motion from Councillor Jay Dunbar, seconded by Councillor Postereros. Whereas health officials are predicting a fourth wave of the COVID-19 to break out this fall and the return of students, and whereas the town hall is not currently equipped to provide a hybrid meeting format where the mayor, a few councillors, and a few staff members return to the office for council meetings. Therefore, be it resolved that council continue with the current practice of Zoom meetings and that in-person meetings be considered again when health officials state it is safe to do so. Discussion? All in favor of this motion? And that's carried. One of these days, council will be all together in one room. 9.8, we have the, sorry. Oh, we have two more, okay. We have a motion from Councillor Roy, seconded by Deputy Mayor Summers. Be it resolved that council direct the CAO clerk to create a policy to prohibit individuals who have not been double vaccinated from entering municipal facilities. Discussion. Councillor Posterero, followed by Councillor Wells, followed by Councillor Dunbar.
I know this is just the baby steps of creating the policy, but I was just going to question, how would we accommodate individuals who are not able to be vaccinated?
And Ms. Scott?
Through you, Mayor Hagman, thank you for that question, Councillor Posterero. So we have been reviewing several options for the what if that comes along with this policy, and there would be some options. So we're looking at one would be requirement of testing on an ongoing basis for those who do not wish to be vaccinated, but that would be incorporated within the policy. And we do have a few samples from other municipalities that are moving along the same path as we are considering.
And Councillor Wells?
Thank you, Mayor Hagman. I realize in the news that this is a contentious issue on a daily basis, and I'm assuming that you'll be seeking legal advice as you draft the policy.
Through you, Mayor Hagman, to you, Councillor Wells. Yes, the short answer to that is yes. I have had a discussion with our municipal solicitor as well for the preliminary steps to move forward on this. if council so directs me to enact such a policy or research such a policy that would come forward to the Corporate Services Committee, we will certainly have it reviewed by our legal team prior to going to the committee.
And Councillor Jay Dunbar.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I got a couple of questions for Ms. Scott. Is that how would we go about enforcing this, and who would be enforcing it? And are we talking about added staff or already hired staff that we have here in-house?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Dunbar. With regard to the staffing and ensuring that the staff have their vaccines, that would be just having them present their vaccination slip that they received. We would record that. We would also want to incorporate within the policy that should it be mandated for a booster, that would also be a requirement if council moves forward with this policy. And this would not require additional staff. We do have staff in place to calculate and maintain the records. It would be part of their HR file. And then with regard to the daily testing or the twice a week testing or once a week testing, however we lay that out within the policy, we can look at the rapid testing that is being done by other organizations within the community as distributed by the chamber.
Just to follow up, Madam Mayor, if I may. If we are eventually heading back into open meetings inside the council chambers, and we're requiring proof of vaccination, and we have individuals who are not going to abide by this and are going to force their way into a meeting or something, who would be enforcing those individuals out of the meetings?
Through you, Madam Mayor, these are all considerations that council will have to take into account when looking at passing such a policy. This is something that staff would not be able to enforce. We don't have security within the building. That would have to be something that would be enforced by the OPP in discussions with them as well. There's a lot of variables to implementing these policies. They aren't a simple black and white solution. There are many considerations that need to be had with answers for each situation to be clearly spelled out. This policy is something that will take some time to develop if that is the wish of council, to have in-person meetings.
Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Mayor Hagman. I'm just looking at, we have two resolutions here. The one dealing with individuals entering the facility and employees having a double vaccination. So with regard to employees, that would be a question. No, but I'm just going to say.
I just wanted to try and get council's focus on the first resolution, and then we'll move to the second resolution where we'll open the floor again for questions, with all due respect.
Correct. So with regard to the second motion, which is to prohibit individuals who have not been double vaccinated from entering the facility, that would be require the staff to enforce that or outside enforcement. Whereas the third motion would be an employment thing, enforced by the employer.
And to help administration along with this, there are those of us that sit on other public meetings and public boards. I know that these discussions are taking place across Algoma with Algoma Public Health, and that they too are putting together policies along with the other 34 health unit or 33 public health units in the province. And so I will be sharing those policies with administration. We have a governance committee meeting tomorrow, and these discussions will be taking place. Councillor Pastorero.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And further to that point, I think it will be a lot easier to manage and administer these policies if they are created once the vaccine passport is in place. Like once our Ontario government is not prorogued and once local health units have very decisive information on this matter, I think it will be a lot easier. I understand that there are going to be those that would protest it. But once the COVID passport is in place, I think this will just be another step in protecting the employees of the town and to ensure that everyone is safe. Like it is your right not to get a vaccine, but you are not free from the consequences of not doing so.
Thank you. Are there any other comments on this motion as it relates to double vaccinating people and municipal facilities? Seeing none, all in favor of this motion? And that is carried. Thank you. And the third part of the motion on resuming in-person council meetings, I have a motion from Councillor Jay Dunbar, seconded by Deputy Mayor Summers. Be it resolved that council direct the CAO clerk to create a policy mandating double vaccination of all municipal employees. Discussion. All in favor of this motion? And that's carried. Thank you. Moving on to the administration project tracking update. Are there any questions of administration on this update? And seeing no hands going up from the Director of Protective Services with regard to the radio tower, I have a motion from Councillor B. Dunbar, seconded by Councillor Roy. Be it resolved that council authorize $215,000 be budgeted in the 2022 budget for the installation of a 200-foot communications tower at the current water tower site location, and that the project be funded from the future projects reserve, and that the CAO clerk be authorized to investigate available partnership funding opportunities. Discussion. Deputy Mayor Summers.
My only question was, in the report, it's talking about the fact that the other tower is not that safe and the guide wires are fraying and stuff. And then on the second part, it says that one of the providers we left on that tower. And I'm just wondering, first of all, why would we even leave the tower up there if it's not safe? And why would there be still a provider with something on that tower? Why wouldn't everything be moved on to the new tower?
And I believe that Mr. Raymond is going to answer your question.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. If you can look at the first picture, the part that's halfway down the tower is the ExplorerNet. Council has an agreement with them that they're the only internet provider that is allowed on the tower. That is why half of the tower would be left up for ExplorerNet, leaving the new tower open to other opportunities of bringing internet into the town of Blind River.
And a second question, Deputy Mayor Summers.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if it would be would there not be a possibility to contact them and just tell them what's going on? Maybe then they might have a change of heart. I'm just thinking it just seems silly to leave an old tower up there, whether it's half of it or not, when we're putting up a brand new tower. It's just a comment.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. I don't know. There was an agreement that was signed by council with ExplorerNet. So that agreement would have to be reopened, I guess, and redone with ExplorerNet.
Councillor Jay Dunbar.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm quite happy to hear this here report. I mean, see and hear Ken's answers to the reason for the new tower. I know there's another telecom who would like to get up and running in the area, and they've been trying to break in here, but it was the contract apparently we had with ExplorerNet And now they're going to have an opportunity, and maybe other ones may have an opportunity to also come along and utilize our new tower. But I guess my question is, I know it's a contract from days gone by, but is this a permanent 99 years contract, or a forever contract, or a 10 years contract with ExploreNet?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I don't have an answer to that one. I haven't seen the contract. All I know that it was an inclusive contract for ExploreNet.
Yeah, I guess going forward, we won't have to worry about that with a new tower. Thanks, Kenny.
Councillor Pastorero.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My question was very similar to Councillor Dunbar's, asking about when that contract would be up with ExploreNet. And if we did, like Councillor Summers, Deputy Mayor Summers was talking about, decommission the old and unsafe one completely, would that contract be void, or would it pass over to the new tower? And then their exclusivity would then also shift with it over to this new tower, therefore prohibiting any new ISPs from joining it.
So I can't answer any questions on what the contract was, but what you're looking at here is about 40 feet up the tower that would be left. When they put this in, riggers would not climb the tower because it is in such poor repair. So it was what could be reached with a bucket truck. That's the height. So it looks a little higher than what it actually is in the picture. It's probably under 50 feet of a section, and there's only one set of guy wires that would be left on to hold up that little section.
Councillor Pastorero.
Thank you. Just to follow up to that then. So is ExploreNet's current situation on the tower within the reach of a bucket truck, or would it have to be lowered? And would ExploreNet agree with that kind of shift down the tower?
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, the ExploreNet equipment would not be touched. We would just bring the tower down to that height. Anything above it would be removed, and the rest would stay there. The only thing that is above it are the fire departments and public works. That's our equipment up on the top. And that's my main concern. If something happens, we have two fire departments are out of radios and paging, and public works has nothing for radio communications.
Councillor J. Dunbar.
Just one more, Ken. Once we have a new tower up, I'm hoping, or I'm assuming, you'll utilize them. Then we'll switch over to the new tower. Correct?
Correct. That's my main reasoning for having the tower put in.
Okay.
It's for the fire departments and public works, getting other departments on there, like any internet. That'd be extra bonuses to help pay for the maintenance, the yearly maintenance on the tower every year.
And just to follow up, I guess we utilize other emergency services such as MFN. They may have their pagers for their fire departments on there also?
Yes, they're also on there.
Okay, great.
And are there any other questions on this motion? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And we have no updates on the service delivery status. So moving over to the committee reports, corporate services meeting was on August 30th. And our first motion is on civil recognition on the death of a current or former member of council policy. We have a motion from Councillor Pastorero, seconded by Deputy Mayor Summers. Be it resolved that council adopt the civic recognition on the death of a council member, current or former policy as presented and as recommended by the Corporate Services Committee. Discussion? All in favor of this motion? And that's carried. Thank you. And on the death of a current employee policy, I have a motion from Councillor Jay Dunbar, seconded by Deputy Mayor Summers. Be it resolved that council adopt the death of a current employee policy as amended and as recommended by the Corporate Services Committee. Discussion? All in favor of this motion? And that's carried. Thank you. And on the pedestrian crossover, I have a motion from Councillor Wells, seconded by Councillor B. Dunbar. Whereas a request for a pedestrian crossover was received, and whereas school zone safety is one of the utmost priority for council, and whereas it is recommended to install light bars with sound PXO system, therefore be it resolved that council approve the transfer from the Futures Project Reserve to cover full costs associated with the project in the amount of $15,000, and that council authorize a new system be budgeted for the remainder of the municipal crossover, remainder of municipal crossovers at one per year until complete, as recommended by the Corporate Services Committee. Discussion, Councillor Pastorero.
Sorry, Mayor Hagman, I need to turn off my video and my sound as this is one of my conflict of interest.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other discussions? Councillor Jay Dunbar, followed by Councillor Wells.
I guess my question is, if and when the new school will resume, start up in its new location, is something like this transferable over to the new school area somewhere if needed? Or is it just decommissioned, basically, Ken? I don't know if you're going to answer that.
Yep, I can answer this. The poles are just cemented in so they can be removed and put anywhere we want after the school moves. And that is what we're going to do is once the school is closed, we'll move it to the next area that it's actually needed, where it'll be permanently installed.
And Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Mayor Hagman. I recall that when we were approached by Christian Horizons a few years ago with regard to a crossover at that location, we were told that there were problems with regard to visibility there. Has anything changed with regard to this crossover?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the crossover they wanted was beside their building, right on the corner. This one is down the street in front of the high school, which is in a straight stretch. That's where the differences come in. Where Christian Horizons wanted it, they wanted it in front of their building where it's on a corner. That's why that one wasn't put in. But where it's going in front of the old LeBeff store, the white building. So it's going from there across to the high school, which is in the middle of the straight stretch.
Councillor Wells.
So as a follow-up question, we'd have to restrict parking along that stretch of the Woodward Avenue so that there's visibility both sides approaching the crossover?
Correct. It's 30 meters that there will be parking, no parking, I believe is what's on here. So there will be a section on both sides that there will be restricted parking, and that's why you'll see the bylaw that's coming up later on for the school to have another area for picking up and dropping off students.
Seeing no other.
Only be daytime restrictions, not all like nighttime. It'll just be daytime.
Thanks, Mr. Raymond. And I see no other hands going up, so I will call for a vote on this motion. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And 11.1.4, and this is moved by Councillor Wells, seconded by Councillor Roy. Be it resolved that council accept the Blind River Accessibility Plan 2021 to 2026 as presented and as recommended by the Corporate Services Committee. Discussion? All in favor of this motion? And that's carried. 11.1.5 from the CAO clerk with regard to the customer services policy. This is moved by Councillor Wells, seconded by Deputy Mayor Summers. Be it resolved that council adopt the Blind River customer service policy as presented and as recommended by the Corporate Services Committee. Discussion? All in favor of this motion? And that is carried. Thank you. And from our treasurer, 11.1.6 on the reserve and reserve funds. I have a motion from Councillor B. Dunbar, seconded by Councillors or Deputy Mayor Summers. Be it resolved that council accept the amended Schedule A to the reserve and reserve fund policy as presented, and that the balance in the reserve fund for the marine park be transferred to the marina operating budget to offset current year improvement and maintenance costs, and that the balance in the reserve Parks and Rec be allocated to park improvements as part of the 2022 budget process, and that the balance in the reserve special events be earmarked for the River Boardwalk project as recommended by the Corporate Services Committee. Discussion? Deputy Mayor Summers, followed by Councillor Wells, followed by Councillor G. Dunbar.
As far as the reserves go, I have an issue with the last one, the special events monies that were earmarked for special events. I feel that the money should be left for special events. We will be hopefully looking at a summer next year where we can hopefully have some normalcy going on and perhaps be able to have community days. And I would like to see that money left in a fund for using it for community day purposes. So I would like to take that part out and just leave that money where it is. It was actually earned by the beer gardens from the last community days that we had, I believe. And so technically it was monies that we were hoping to use for the next community days, and then COVID came along. So I think I would like to see it held where it is.
Thank you. Councillor Wells?
Thank you, Mayor Hagman. I agree with Deputy Mayor Summers. We have money in that for special events. I'm optimistic that we will be able to have a community days next year. And it would be nice to have money in reserve for that activity. I'm sure people in town will be looking forward to celebrating after 2 years without any events at all.
Thank you. And Councillor B. Dunbar?
I just want to, I agree with both Deputy Mayor Summers and Councillor Wells that money should be left for special events. And like all the rest of us, I'm hoping for community days in the very next year.
Thank you. And our treasurer, Ms. Dent, has her hand up. Go ahead, Ms. Dent.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. Just to clarify, it was our understanding that the money from the beer gardens where staff worked for free, to raise that money was to be tagged for the boardwalk repair. Hence the recommendation to assign that money to the boardwalk repair.
I'm not seeing any hands going up in response to our treasurer's remarks. Councillor J. Dunbar?
Okay, I don't recall that information, but that's all right. I don't remember a lot of things these days. But I was kind of looking forward for a fantastic party also at the community days, and I hate to see that. And it doesn't. We don't. First of all, a question: what's the amount here are we talking about?
I'll just give Ms. Dent a moment to bring it up on her screen.
It's a little over 50,000, I believe.
50,000. Well, I recall putting in my own time in the beer gardens 1 year also, and we moved the money forward for the following year. And if I believe a lot of staff did too. I don't know where we're at here on this recommendation. It seems that we're stuck on this last one with the special events, and maybe we may need to amend this. I thought we were into a grant formulation or monies we were looking at from the last thing I heard about boardwalks. And I don't know if we were successful in the money in the grant for that boardwalk, but I don't want to see us putting that $50,000 into the boardwalk project right now. So I don't know where that's going to leave us here.
Ms. Dent, I'm hearing 4 councillors requesting that the last part of this motion be deleted. What would be the repercussions of doing that?
There are none. It was simply an attempt to clean up some of the older reserve funds that have not been used in a number of years and move them to other projects where the money could be used. If council's wish is to remove that from the recommendation, the money will just continue to sit there until it is spent on something else.
That would be my preference. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dent. Councillor Pastorero.
I guess my question then would be to Ms. Dent. Is it imminent that we need that $50,000 in order to be successful in our grant acquisition for the River Boardwalk project?
To you, Madam Mayor, the answer to that question is no. Again, it was just a discussion among staff as to where funds that have been sitting for a number of years could be better used. And like I said, it was our understanding that the money from the beer gardens was to be allocated towards the boardwalk project. So if that information is incorrect or no longer true, then we can certainly revise the recommendation.
Thank you. And to you, Ms. Scott.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, the rationale for moving the money following the community days that staff and council and members of our volunteer firefighter donated time to work towards. There was a meeting held following that where monies was allocated to the boardwalk project, because at the time that was something that was identified by council that they wished to proceed in. Therefore, resulting in Ms. Dent's comments tonight. The other piece of that was, as per our service delivery review, council was advised and reviewed the report from the service delivery review, stating that our festivals and events were something that we were moving away from and moving more into community groups holding those events. If that is not the wish of council, we can change the resolution to make that that work for this evening. But I would like to ask Ms. Bittner if those monies were at all part of the grant for the boardwalk, because we do have to put up money that isn't 100% funded grant. So I just wondering about that piece of it before we commit it to a festival.
Yeah, that was my question.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Pastorero, that 50,000 has not been written into the project itself, but I would be coming back to council in the event we were successful, perhaps to incorporate that as a contingency, as it will be a hefty price tag to revamp the river. We are hoping to get 70%, if not more, funded from partners, both provincial and federal. But there will be more to come on that one. We do not have an answer yet from the funding agencies.
Thank you, Ms. Bittner. Deputy Mayor Summers.
Just a comment. I know the service review recommended to council that maybe we did a little bit too much, but as for the last 2 years, we have done absolutely nothing. And I would really like to earmark that money for something in the future to be able to provide for the town, some kind of a celebrations, you know, to the fact that hopefully that we are no longer in a COVID living world. So that would be my recommendation. Thank you.
And if I can direct council's attention to your e-scribe for the moment, you will see that Ms. Walsh has removed and that the balance in the reserve special effects be earmarked for the River Boardwalk project. And so we would be voting on the amended motion that you're seeing in your e-scribe. Councillor Wells, did you have a comment?
Yes, Mayor Hagman, thank you. I do appreciate the recommendations of the service delivery review. And I believe we have tried to reduce the number of functions in the community. But the last time that we had community days, we put out a call for service groups and community champions to come forward to assist. And at the end of the day, we had to hire an outside firm to operate the beer tent in the town park. I'm not sure that anything has changed in the last 2 years. And I think we should be prepared to, at least as a council, provide the community with at least the community days weekend. We have removed some other events such as the Polar Plunge, for example. But I think that there are some activities should be considered in spite of the recommendations of the service delivery review.
Thank you. And Councillor Jay Dunbar?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with Councillor Wells' comments, and but what I'm hearing here is, you know, the service delivery review, and Councillor Wells again said, you know, the polar bear plunge is gone. We found someone to take it over. We've had community champions come in to take over the Santa Claus parade. But I mean, but we're in a COVID state here, so none of this has happened. We weren't able to have a Santa Claus parade per se, and I don't know if we will next year. But with that service delivery review, okay, I remember we had to shop out or send out a lot of these festival things that we had. And why I'm saying this, I believe I was the chair on the festival committee, but I do not recall not including the I think the only one that the town was going to be on the hook for per se was going to be the community days event. And I don't recall any of us or anyone on this council saying that we weren't going to have any more community days, hence going forward, unless we could find a community champion. And I kind of got me wondering here, like, what's the end game we're playing here? I mean, if we're going to put this on the table, we're going to have to talk about this. We're no longer going to have community days, or we're going to continue to have community days, period.
Councillor Dunbar, I'm working on one motion at a time, and you're bringing up another agenda topic, which may be discussed at a future council meeting, but I'm not,
All right. Yeah.
I'm not seeing it on tonight's agenda. Councillor Posterero?
Thank you, Mayor Hagman. That's what I was going to say. I was going to ask for a point of order as we're talking about issues that are not related to this. They're definitely important issues, but maybe saved for another time. The motion has already been amended without a vote on the amendment. So,
But I'm about to call.
so let's get back to that.
Thank you. All in favor of this motion? Thank you. And moving on, we have 11.1.7 from the Treasurer Reserve Transfers, August 2021. This is moved by Councillor Roy, seconded by Councillor Posterero. Be it reserved that Council authorize funds be transferred from the Bridge Reserve to cover the pre-engineering costs incurred for the Dawsey Culvert, and that $10,000 for the arena doors and $20,000 for the Palace Theatre sound system be transferred to the Future Projects Reserve as recommended by the Corporate Services Committee. Discussion? Councillor Jay Dunbar?
Okay, I guess again, the 20, I guess, do we have any idea on when the theater will be back up and running. I know there are some theaters that are open. I'm just curious if maybe administration could reach out possibly to our local people running this and inquire on maybe what the intentions are down the road here with the Palace Theater.
And Councillor Dunbar, I believe that we were being respectful of the part owner of the theater, and that will be forthcoming from administration. Ms. Dent?
Through you, Madam Mayor, the intent was not to say that that money would not be available for the Palace Theater if it's required at a future date. I just need it to be in the facilities reserve or the future projects reserve, as opposed to still sitting and being carried forward year after year in the prior year reserve. So it can still be earmarked for possible upgrades to the theater if required, and just moving it to a more appropriate reserve at this time. The prior year reserve is intended really only to be a one-year carryover for things that we budget in 1 year and finish in the next year. Once it gets beyond 2 or 3 years, it really should be reallocated to a different fund.
Thank you. Any other questions on this motion? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And 11.1.9 from August 23rd AMO update. Sorry, I'm going ahead of myself. From the Director of Facilities and Community Services, Reed Communities Center Hall vaccine site. I have a motion from Councillor Wells, seconded by Councillor Jay Dunbar, whereas the North Shore Health Network is removing their role as rental organizer and funder for vaccine distribution of August 31st, 2021. Therefore, be it resolved that council authorize hall rental fees in the amount of $1,200 as well as snow removal associated with clinics be allocated from the COVID-19 Safe Restart Fund, and that Blind River will continue vaccine services at the Blind River Community Center from September 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2021, and that Algoma Public Health is responsible for providing insurance, janitorial services, as well as security for vaccine distribution as recommended by the Corporate Services Committee. Discussion? All in favor of this motion? And that's carried. Thank you. And now on to the AMO policy update, the draft resolution for municipal recognition of September 30th as National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. This is moved, a motion is moved by Councillor Wells, seconded by Deputy Mayor Summers. Whereas the Truth and Reconciliation Commission released its final report on June 2nd, 2015, which included 94 calls to action to redress the legacy of residential schools and advance the process of Canadian reconciliation. And whereas the recent discoveries of remains and unmarked graves across Canada have led to increased calls for all levels of government to address the recommendation in the TRC's calls for action. And whereas all Canadians and all orders of government have a role to play in reconciliation, and whereas recommendation number 80 of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission called upon the federal government in collaboration with Aboriginal peoples to establish a statutory holiday, a National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, to ensure that public commemoration of the history and the legacy of residential schools remains a vital component of the reconciliation process. And whereas the federal government has announced September 30th, 2021 as the first National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, this will be National Orange Shirt Day and a statutory holiday. Therefore, be it resolved that Council hereby commits to recognizing September 30th, 2021 as a National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, National Orange Shirt Day, by sharing the stories of residential school survivors, their families, and communities as recommended by the Corporate Services Committee. Discussion? Councillor Palastrero?
I just find it's very important if we are going to be honorable partners in the treaty to uphold these days. I find it shameful that some provinces are opting out of recognizing this day and just saying that it is a federal holiday. So I believe that if you are seeking to actually be an active participant in reconciliation, that you need to recognize and honor this day and not just use lip service and tokenism and say that it's okay because it's just a federal holiday. So I am very proud that our municipality is supporting this and to further more and more of the calls to action that very few are currently being honored. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And I would ask that there are a number of various shirts that are out there. I would ask if administration would speak to our representatives from Mississauga First Nation so that we can ensure that we are wearing the proper dress code on September 30th. Ms. Scott?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I have already reached out to Mississauga First Nation, and the Director of Operations has been kind enough to share a number of information with me that I will be able to share as well with staff, as well as the shirt and the flag.
Thank you. Councillor Wells.
Thank you, Mayor Hagman. I'm just wondering, since September the 30th this year is going to be a statutory holiday, will that be applied to the municipal office as well?
Through you, Madam Mayor, thank you for the question, Councillor Wells. It's a federal holiday. It is not a provincial holiday. And as we are an employer that's mandated under the provincial law, we are not part of the holiday, but we will have orange shirts for staff to wear. We will take time to share some of the stories that have been shared so far, and we'll hope to receive many more from our neighbors in Mississauga First Nation, so that we are echoing what Councillor Pastorero noted, that this is not a lip service, but we're actually showing and remembering and honoring the day.
Thank you. Councillor Pastorero.
I may be overstepping my bounds because I'm probably not allowed to talk about it because I had to declare a conflict of interest. But should you have passed that motion when that was about crosswalks, I sent a picture to Mayor Hagman. Orangeville recently had painted some of their crosswalks with orange and 7 feathers, and the 7 feathers were to recognize the grandfather teachings of First Nations. I think it would be a very beautiful gesture as well. If you pass that motion, that maybe those crosswalks by the school, especially being near a school, right? To honor the lost and stolen children, to have those crosswalks be orange and recognized with the 7 feathers of the grandfather teachings.
Thank you. And Ms. Scott?
Thank you, Mayor Hagman. To you, Councillor Pastorero, that is a nice gesture that we could take into consideration for future crosswalks, possibly especially on the Young Fox road crossing to the new school, as this one will not remain as a permanent until we hear any further or different information from the board. But at this time, I think it is just a temporary sidewalk that we will be creating there. But this could be future consideration for the Young Fox crossing.
And seeing no other hands, all in favor of this motion? And that is carried. Thank you. I have no unfinished business. Under correspondence, we received a letter from Ms. Blanchette on the witches dance and the road closure. I have a motion from Councillor Pastorero, seconded by Councillor Wells. Be it resolved that council authorize road closures from Coslade Street to Woodward Avenue intersection to Woodward Avenue and Hudson Street intersection, and whereas barricades are not to interfere with Hudson Street to Woodward area traffic for the Witches Walk Saturday, October 16th, 2021, for the hours of 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. Questions? All in favor of this motion? And that is carried. Thank you. And with regards to the correspondence from the Robinson Huron Treaty Litigation Fund, I have a motion from Councillor Roy, seconded by Councillor B. Dunbar. Whereas the town of Blind River is located within the Robinson Huron Treaty lands, and whereas the Robinson Huron Treaty recognizes the political and economic relationship between First Nations signatories and the Crown, including the sharing of revenues of any resource development on lands involved in the treaty, and whereas the Crown has not acted honorably in maintaining its promises set out in the treaty and the Robinson Huron Treaty Chiefs, and whereas the Robinson Huron Treaty Litigation Fund wants to move forward with treaty renewal and the rebuilding of the relationship with the Crown in the right of Ontario and Canada, and whereas a settlement of this claim will not only assist the Robinson Huron Treaty nations achieve improved health outcomes and economic development, but assist with rebuilding after the pandemic. Therefore, be it resolved that the town of Blind River supports Robinson Huron Treaty Litigation Fund by requesting that Ontario come to the table and enter into good faith negotiations to resolve this ongoing dispute with our First Nations neighbors. Discussion. All in favor of this motion? And that's carried. And for, under correspondence for information, on August 4th, the city of Elliott Lake gave an update on the police board composition for East Algoma OPP. Any comments, discussion? Seeing none. I received no notices of motion, so moving on to bylaw 21-45. This is moved by Deputy Mayor Summers, seconded by Councillor J. Dunbar. Be it resolved that council authorize the mayor and CAO clerk to sign bylaw 21-45, being a bylaw of the corporation of the town of Blind River, to enter into an agreement with Beamish Construction for Woodward Avenue Improvements Project was passed in open council this 7th day of September 2021. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And the next motion was moved by Councillor Wells, seconded by Councillor Pastorero. Be it resolved that council authorize the mayor and CAO clerk to sign bylaw 21-46, being a bylaw of the corporation of the town of Blind River, to authorize the appointment of a deputy fire chief for the corporation of the town of Blind River, was passed in open council the 7th day of September 2021. Discussion. Councillor Pastorero, followed by Councillor J. Dunbar.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was just wondering what the budget implications of this will be moving forward. Not that I'm opposed to it in any way, but just I noted in the report that it discussed the budgetary figures. And so this year there would be no repercussion, but in further years, what are we looking at?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that's a report to come later in the year to the Budget Committee. I'm looking at revamping what the firefighters are making. They're just making around 15 something an hour. So we will be, I will be coming to Budget Committee with a report on that very soon.
So the deputy fire chief doesn't have a set amount. It would be the same as in the budgetary process?
No, it'll be an hourly rate, depending what council agrees on. I'll have a few different items that we can look at. There's hourly wage, there's point systems that they have out there. So I'm looking at see what is the best for our department. Right now it's an hourly wage and everybody's broken down to different hours. So the deputy chief would make more than say the captains or the firefighters. And we may look at something when he's taking over for me, if I'm on holidays, that there might be a small wage increase for those hours, but that's something that'll come to council before there's any decision made on that. As it is for this year, there'll be no budget. differences.
And Councillor Jay Dunbar.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Most of my questions were answered by Ken there with Councillor Postero's questions. But my question is, Ken, who or was our last deputy fire chief, and did we have one?
I'm thinking back here. I haven't frozen. I'm looking. I believe it was at least 6 to 7 years ago, maybe, that that position was removed. It was Daryl McLean at the time, but with me being just full-time fire chief, there was no need for that position at the time because my only duties were as fire chief, so I was on call 24/7. So that one kind of went by the wayside. But now with all the other items that I have on my plate as the Director of Protective Services, I'm looking to put a firefighter back in that position. It automatically puts him under the FPPA, the fire code, that when I'm gone, I don't have to appoint him. He's automatically the person that is in charge and has all the authority of the fire chief on the municipality. So it's been at least 7 years since we've had a deputy fire chief.
Okay.
I'm seeing no other hands going up for this bylaw. All in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. And last but not least on our bylaws, I have a motion from Councillor B. Dunbar, seconded by Councillor J. Dunbar. Be it resolved that council authorize the mayor and CAO clerk to sign bylaw 21-47, being a bylaw of the corporation of the town of Blind River, to amend bylaw 1514 for the corporation of the town of Blind River, being a bylaw to regulate traffic within the town of Blind River, was passed in open council the 7th day of September 2021. Questions? Councillor Dunbar?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Could I have a little clarity on just exactly what this bylaw means? Maybe Mr. Ramo or maybe Ms. Scott? What are we doing here with this bylaw? Regulate within the town, meaning what?
So what we're doing is we're doing a bus loading zone for the new school, which will be behind the high school. So on Huron Avenue, where it connects to Park Street, if you there's a picture showing you the blue line where it will be. This is where the buses will line up to pick up the new school children to take them out where it's going to be safe. We're doing the school bus loading zone because if we didn't have it, the buses would have to put their flashers on, which means no traffic would be able to go through that street for the whole time that they're loading. So we do have bus loading zones in different areas. There's St. Mary's Public School. They've all got bus loading zones. So what we're doing is we're moving this one from the front, where the new crosswalk's going, to the rear of the building to make it safer for the children to get on and off the buses.
Great, thanks, Kenny.
And Councillor Roy?
I was going to ask a similar question, and Mr. Ramo alluded to a picture. There's nothing here. All I have is the actual the bylaw, and I've got the request from ADSAB. That's it. I don't have a picture of what this loading zone look like.
That I got from Jason. So if you look at the back of the high school where the first water pump is by the landing, the boat landing, if you know the back of the high school, it goes just past the back of the high school to where the parking lot begins. So about 3/4 of the back road on Huron Avenue will be covered by this bus loading zone.
But traffic's still gonna be allowed to go through there while they're loading?
They will be able to, because it's over off the street, at the side of the street, and so if you're looking at it, this loading will be done on the side of the school itself, so the kids will never have to cross the street, which will leave the cars to be able to go back and forth on the other side of the buses. So it's off the street a little ways, so the street will still be open where the buses are parked.
Their own property, so why do we, you know,
Because if we don't, they have to put their flashing lights on, which means no traffic can go through for the whole time loading. It's just a safety zone that we're putting in for the
oh, yeah, for sure. Okay.
buses.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
And Ms. Scott, did you have something to add at this time?
Through you, Madam Mayor. No, I was just going to comment on what Mr. Ream had just mentioned, that without this bylaw in place, the buses would then have to stand with their stop signs out and their bus lights on, and traffic would not be permitted to pass on the road. When it's declared a bus loading zone, they can just simply pull over and pick up students, as you would see in other areas at other schools. So this is just a safety regulation under the Highway Traffic Act.
Thank you. And seeing no other hands going up, all in favor of this motion? And that's carried. Thank you. We have no council reports or announcements, and there was no addendum to our packages tonight. So I'm moving on to the closed session. I have a motion from Councillor Roy, seconded by Deputy Mayor Summers. Be it resolved that council go into a closed meeting at 9:06 p.m. in accordance with Section 239 of the Municipal Act in order to discuss matters pertaining to personal matters and also offers to purchase. All in favor of this motion? And that is carried. And I thank the public for their patience with us during the first part of the meeting. I would ask you to stay tuned. We will be back after the closed session. Thank you. Welcome back, Blind River. I have a motion from Councillor Wells, seconded by Councillor Posterero. Be it resolved that council resume the open meeting at 9:54 p.m. All in favor of this motion? And that is carried. Thank you. And during our closed session, council discussed an offer to purchase as well as personal matters and relating to the municipality. And I have a motion from Deputy Mayor Summers, seconded by Councillor Wells. Whereas the current tourism ambassador position has proved to be very instrumental in the progression of a number of projects throughout all departments for the town of Blind River. And whereas council wishes to maintain the momentum created by this position, therefore be it resolved that council authorize the creation of a full-time position for tourism ambassador and economic development assistant, and that the CAO clerk be authorized to post for a full-time position. Thank you. All in favor of this motion? And that is carried. Thank you. And I have a motion from Councillor Posterero, seconded by Councillor Jay Dunbar. Be it resolved that council authorize the mayor and CAO clerk to sign bylaw 21-48, being a bylaw of the corporation of the town of Blind River, to adopt the minutes of the meeting of September 7th, 2021, was passed in open council the 7th day of September, 2021. All in favor of this motion? And that's carried. Thank you. And last but not least, moved by Councillor B. Dunbar, seconded by Councillor Roy. Be it resolved that council adjourn the meeting at 9:56 p.m. All in favor of this motion? And that is carried. Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of your evening.
Happy birthday, Sally.